Good day, State of the Federation viewers and Star Trek Attack Wing players. This is State of the Federation, your in-depth strategical look at battles all throughout the Alpha Quadrant. I am your host, Will. I'm the liberator of DS9, as many of you also probably are. But I'm also the creator of the Armchair Admiral series on Board Game Geek and the replays here on YouTube. And I am a devoted follower of the founders. Victory is life. On today's episode, joining me today is going to be my co-host, Dan. Dan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello there. Dan, I'm out in California near San Francisco. Been playing, since the Dominion War started. I was introduced to Star Trek at Gen Con and just fell in love with it. Won myself a DS9, won myself all of the OP prizes. So delighted to be here, and thanks for having me.
All right. Glad you could make it. We have a great show for you guys today. We're going to be talking about antimatter mines, how to use them, strategies for using them and for playing against them. We're going to be going after mobility effects. What does it mean for your game? How can you use it offensively, defensively, a little bit of everything. And last but not least, we're going to take a look at the Tholian web OP scenario. This one is going to be quite an interesting one, and there will be a lot of strategic choices to make. Anything you have to go about with before we start, Dan?
No, sounds like a great agenda, and let's get started.
All right, so let us get started with antimatter mines. Let me see if I can find my correct image here. Oop. There we go. That was pretty bad. There we go. All right, so, just to start with antimatter mines, before we get into the placement stuff, which I had images for in there already. Antimatter mines. As an attack, you discard this card and place a minefield token in your rear firing arc at range 1. If you place the token on a ship, or if a ship enters the minefield, you roll 4 attack dice. Any hits or crits damage the ship as normal. The affected ship does not roll any defense dice. This is a 5-point Federation weapon upgrade. This attack is a little bit special. It's different than your normal, main weapon attacks or photon torpedo attacks or anything like that. The antimatter mines follow a specific set of rules that are very similar to any kind of attack done in the action phase, and that is that any combat tokens you have will not directly affect the antimatter mine attack. So if you have battle stations, you won't be able to spend it to get extra hits. If you have a scan, the opponent's not running defense dice anyway, but if you had a scan, I don't think that works either. If you have an evade token and you're getting hit with antimatter mines, you cannot spend an evade token to avoid damage. Other than that, there are lots of cards that will affect the antimatter mines, and we'll be getting into those pretty shortly. Dan, your first impressions?
Antimatter mines are a lot of fun. They are tricky to set up, but when you can get them to go off and you get a nice roll, it's the look on your opponent's face is worth all the trouble.
They're very nice. But yeah, let's start out with antimatter mine and placement. So dropping antimatter mines in your rear arc is a pretty extraordinary effect, especially without a target lock. I've prepared a small scenario. You are the USS Reliant, shown here with a little critical damage marker on it, but let's say you didn't take any damage. You have somehow wandered into the middle of a swarm of 6 Romulan science vessels. This happens every day in the Star Trek universe, of course. But the question is, which of these ships can you take out with the antimatter mines? Do you have any thoughts, Dan?
Well, the obvious answer is I can take out the stuff that's directly behind me, the one that's closer or further, just from the sort of the visual overview of it.
But the real question is, what about these guys over here? Does anyone else have answers? Because I do. Shall we go see our answers?
Let's go on.
Bam! The correct answer is everything. And this is one of the things I love about antimatter mines. You can see the rear ones are easy to hit. The size of the antimatter token even allows us to hit both of the ones behind us at the same time. Even though that ship is almost range 3 from us, I mean, it's just at the edge of range 2 right there, and the antimatter mine token itself extends just that far to be able to hit that as well. But some of the real surprises here might be these ones over to the side. Those were definitely, you know, range 1, range 2, all the way off to the edge. And just by clipping the very tiny edge of the diagonal back arc, you can hit both of those thanks to just the size of that token. It's really rather terrifying and impressive at the same time, don't you think?
Agreed.
And last but not least, you can hit things in front of you with antimatter mines. You know, it might be a little difficult in this situation. If you wanted to hit both of the ones in front of you, you'd have to lay the mines and roll an attack against yourself as well. But you know, if you only needed to hit one, you can probably scoot it around the side of your ship pretty easily. But I mean, the thing is, rear arc range 1 with the antimatter mine token is a lot larger than you initially think it is.
I can remember the first time somebody used a mine, pretty much the way you're describing, next to the Reliant. They were right next to me. I mean, we were side by side, and I did not expect that the token could be bent around the way you're describing, demonstrating there. So certainly caught me off guard the first time.
Oh yeah, it's very dangerous. You really need to know exactly where these things can hit. But I mean, yeah, we're going to be talking more about antimatter mines today. And just to start off with, you know, antimatter mines require a rear firing arc. So let's go over the ships that have a rear firing arc. And I mean, just to begin with, the Federation is pretty famous for these. Almost every ship has one except the Constitution. We have the Galaxy class, Miranda class, Defiant, Excelsior, Nova, and Intrepid. 6 different Federation ships have rear arc. In addition to those, the Klingons also have a couple rear arcs of their own. In the Katinga, the Burrell, which is the generic version of the Chitang from OP2, and the Cavort class. Anything to say about these ships?
I play a lot of Federation. The rear arcs in the Federation is a tremendous boon, and don't underestimate it. Whether we're talking about antimatter mines or you know, photon torpedoes, but many of the time you're going to have stuff going on behind you. Many of the time you might actually prefer to try to get things behind you. So that's really where antimatter mines and those rear arcs shine.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the great things about antimatter mines is you can shoot it behind you without needing a target lock. And if your opponent is behind you, a lot of these ships, not all of them, but some of the ships, you know, they have their second attack weapon slot, or could have a second weapon slot with an upgrade like B'Elanna Torres, and then they would have room for those torpedoes that can fire rearward as well. So round after engagement, you drop the mines on them from behind. The next round after that, you can probably, you know, get a target lock and launch some torpedoes at them. So, you know, being able to attack forward and backward is a very lucrative proposition, if I may say so.
You may.
But yeah, I mean, you got some great ships. Beyond that, though, what we're looking at is really the main thing about getting antimatter mines where they need to be, and that is going to be mobility. Now, I'm going to bring my images back up here for just a second. And what we have here to deal with are some scenarios. Not really scenarios, but I mean, this is about how well that a ship can move. You know, 3 turns, 3 banks, 4 straight. That is pretty much the standard for most ships these days. You know, obviously there's a couple exceptions. You know, the Galaxy class turns like a tugboat. The Voyager is super speedy and can go faster. But, you know, for most of your Klingon ships, for the Miranda class, the Nova class, and all those ones, the best you're going to be doing is like a 4 straight, 3 bank, or 3 turn. So, I mean, this isn't really a problem when your enemy is already within range 3. Like right here, we have a ship, we have our target practice vessel set up, you know, just outside of range 2. And depending on, no matter which way you go, you actually have a shot. So here we see with the 3-turn, you have the diagonal arc, and you can drop it. This one's a really easy one. He's like even directly in your arc right there. So I mean, that's the easiest way to drop antimatter mines on someone, is just do a hard turn and then drop them right then and there. Anything to add with this one?
No.
Yep, looks good to me. The 3 bank, you have just about the same proposition. It's a little bit tougher because you're kind of stretching it a bit, but you still have them, right there. And since it's facing, just about forward, if the ship ends up taking only a 1 forward, or you somehow force them to take less than a 1 forward due to bumping with another ship behind you or something like that, I mean, you could force it into that minefield, a second, maybe even a 3rd time if you're lucky, but most opponents won't really fall for that. The last one, and again, you're going to have a tough time doing it, is you can drop it, on top of your ship and right face down into someone else's face. And, you're taking damage, but you're taking them with you. This is well, since we're using the Miranda class right here for the example, this is kind of a con maneuver, I'd like to think. It's like, from hell's heart I stab at thee. But yeah. So I mean, when you're kind of close, it's easy to take advantage of. But if you're a little further away, like in these situations, what you really need is some kind of added mobility to add to the list. So I mean, what is some good extra mobility cards? I mean, we've got, what do we have? We have Engage, we have Insha, which is elite talent, Engage and elite talent. Romulan Pilot from the prize Adramir. Let's see, anything you can think of right off the top of your head?
I'd say those are the 3 main ones. A lot of the others preclude an attack, even though you are getting some further movement. The independent flagship, that is the flip side of the Dominion, has a free target lock. Its power will also let another ship or kind of slingshot beyond the flagship ship.
Oh yeah,
So,
I played with that one before. That one's a lot of fun, let me tell you. But yeah, like, so if you want to be able to use your antimatter mines in the initial engagement, you're really looking at some kind of additional movement of some sort. So here we see this is just using the Romulan Pilot. Every ship has a 4 forward. Every ship has a 1 bank that is a green maneuver. Well, every ship that can lay the mines anyway. Every good let me not maybe I shouldn't go into that debate right now. But as you can see with the little template I have laid out, this is range 1 behind our Miranda class. And I mean, since the minefield only has to touch a small part of it, even just that little bit extra with a little bit of turn added onto it can get you just about anywhere on the battlefield you need. So if we even started at this range, pretty much everywhere that ship could go, I mean, it could turn left, turn right, come straight at you. This arc is pretty much, combined with the antimatter mine range, is going to hit no matter which direction they go. And I think that's pretty spectacular, really. Huge range, huge distances. Let's see. Another one that we didn't talk about yet, the Klingon ships with their ability to cloak and their ability to sensor echo. Sensor echo is a great way to position yourself for the rear arc. A hard turn and the farthest sensor echo you have, and again, you're covering almost that same area. You have a great huge area to the whatever side that you turn to, and you also have a large distance that you can travel, even if they were going straight or banking. It's really not that hard to catch them in that arc. Any thoughts on other maneuvering possibilities, Dan?
I think that covers a lot of them. I mean, it really kind of asks of you to think 1 layer deeper in terms of movement and setting up that shot. Rather than move, attack, you need to think about being able to sort of move, attack. And those mobility cards really provide a lot of options in those regards, whether you're using just good old sensor echo or some of the additional movement cards that we're talking about. And we're going to go into that a little more in the next segment as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, mobility effects are really powerful. But yeah, I mean, we've gone over the ships that can use antimatter mines, different maneuver capabilities with it. I mean, let's go over attack card combos. What upgrade cards work with the antimatter mines? Do you want to start us off?
Well, it bears repeating. The antimatter mine card does not happen like a normal attack. It's a special attack. So many of the tokens that you can set up on your turn will not work.
Mm-hmm.
No target. You can't turn in your target lock to reroll. You can't turn in your battle stations to convert battle stations.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that do work, a couple for the Klingons would be Nagarin and Drex. Those are an
Nice.
action that takes place prior to the attack and are effects that happen throughout your turn. Drex will convert battle stations into a crit and all hits.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a tremendous help for antimatter mines.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Federation has Scotty, which will add 2 dice to one attack. So that gets you from 4 to 6 dice.
Oh yeah. I mean, the only problem with things like Scotty or other cards that add attack dice like Nivek would be that uh, you only get to add them to a particular attack because they fall under the this round category of attacks.
Mm-hmm.
But other things that modify attack on a continuous basis, Denatra, Cyrano Jones and his Tribble tokens, anti-proton scan, things like that will add attack dice to each thing you hit with the antimatter mines. If you hit multiples, like we saw that you could hit, it was not too far-fetched an idea that you could hit multiples of ships in the very first description that we did, the my little quiz section.
Yeah, hitting 2 ships. That's not far fetched.
Yeah.
Hitting 3 ships. That's getting really lucky and
Mm-hmm.
having a lot of fun. But being able to drop it on 2 ships is not that far fetched if
Yeah.
things line up right.
Yeah, and it's very nice. It's like getting a free attack on top of ignoring the defense and whatever bonuses you're already getting.
Yeah.
But I know other things that I personally love for these. All the scan enhancers work. So Dimitri Valtane, Mr. Spock, the Breen Aid. I throw Bohica on that list because he acts kind of the same way, even though he uses a battle stations token.
Right.
But being able to get 4 or 5 dice unmodified is all right. 2 to 3 hits. If you're really lucky, maybe you will get the 5 hits. But with something like Dimitri and Breen Aid, ones that I'm personally fond of, I almost always get 4 or 5, sometimes 6 hits out of these things. What else is good? Oh, another one of my personal favorites, the IKS Chitang, which is the OP2 prize ship. While it's cloaked, you get to re-roll all of your attack dice. So that also applies to the antimatter mines, and that's a great way to inflict some additional damage.
Along that lines, Captain Worf would allow you to re-roll blanks.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you're using the command token resource, you could use the re-roll token on this attack.
Oh yes, that is a good one. The re-roll, or even the set token. So you can automatically set, one of your hits is going to be a crit, and if they're cloaked, that's going straight to the hull.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the the different cards that help support it. What about cards that help defend against it? I mean, for these, there's not a lot of options. There's the upgrade that came with the Equinox, which was the navigational deflector. We talked about it a little bit on last episode, but I'm not a huge fan. You either, in normal circumstances, it's 5 points to negate one attack, or one attack die, one hit, and that's it, and it's discarded. Or if you use the ability against a mine or an obstacle, you negate a hit, and then you get to roll defense dice against whatever that mine or obstacle is trying to do to hit you. All right, so what do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, both of those are kind of situational. The interface generator is only going to help you if you're on a cloaked ship. So if you're not on a cloaked ship, your options are reduced drastically. And the navigational deflector, while it sounds great when you read the text, unfortunately it's costed a little high.
Mm-hmm.
And for it only doing its super cool thing against mines, it's hard to justify.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, navigational deflector, interface generator, those are going to be defenses against the attack. Interface generator, of course, will reduce it to one hit no matter how much you roll. But I mean, there's a couple others. There's conditional surrender and Varel, the ones that negate an attack. These only work along with interface generator. They only work if you are directly attacked by the mines.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're dropped on top of you directly, like we're using here, because dropping it directly means that you get all of your bonuses from Drex or Wharf or things like that. These will only help you when you're being dropped on from an attack. So the minefield is already dropped. You negate the attack, and then you kind of move on with life. But there's a couple other ones that still work. There is still the cards that prevent you from being attacked altogether. And this is going to be Corbomite Maneuver, Aladar Jarok, Salok, you know, cards that I would have to say don't see a lot of play, but they can kind of stop this a little bit. When you cannot be attacked in general, then the mines play out a little bit differently. Instead of, if you cannot attack a ship, you cannot lay mines on them either. The problem with that, however, is you can still place it directly in front of them, and for any ship without a backup maneuver, that's an automatic guaranteed, you know, collision next turn. Whether or not you roll anything on the attack dice is another matter, but you're still going to be taking probably some damage. Ooh, excuse me. But yeah, any other thoughts on defenses, Dan?
I think we're going to talk a little more about how to. I mean, the other defenses don't let them line up that shot,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really a question of your flying ability and maneuvering. But staying out of all of these great examples that Will has shown here is, you know, the challenge to your opponent.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that is, you know, I mean that's the way things, and that's exactly what we're going to go into next too. When you're flying with mines or against mines, I mean, what are you looking to do? So, if you're flying, you have a set of mines. What kind of flying tactics are you planning to use against your opponent to keep them hitting, to keep them in range of your abilities?
Generally, you want to kind of fly fast towards them. You want to get past them. You want to get out of their arc and get behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I think I think you've illustrated a lot more about how to bend that token around your arc.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just this little triangle behind you. It's not this little contrail behind you. There's a tremendous area. Actually, it would be interesting to see that white piece of paper cut into here's everything that can be hit by the antimatter mines.
I actually tried that. It was bigger than my sheet of paper.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was imagining that would be a pretty big swath of white paper.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're gonna want to, if you're flying the mines, you want to close the distance between you and an opponent as quickly as you can.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get maneuver yourself to the side behind that opponent in order to line up that shot. If you are having mines flown against you, you need to sort of watch for some of those mobility shenanigans. If you see antimatter mines on their build, what else is on their build? Do they have Drex? Do they have Incha? Do they have Romulan pilot? Because if they do, you can kind of predict right there, at least one of the things that they will be watching for, that opportunity to do that combo.
Oh yeah, I mean, countering mines is not an easy task, especially if someone is prepared for it with, you know, I see people that run antimatter mines, you know, just plain, and I mean that's fine, but combining it with an attack enhancer and a movement enhancer to really get in there and get the job done is a very dangerous combination. I mean, when you're dealing with that, really you need to try to figure out where they're going, block their avenues of, you know, continued movement. You might not be able to, you know, get away from them, because even if you end up, you know, just right in front of them, like here, you can still have the mines laid on you. But if you manage to bump them in any way, that's less maneuvers that they get to do, because things like all the things like engage, inshell, Romulan pilot, those are all actions. If you can't take actions, you can't use them. So while you're sacrificing one ship to it, you're helping protect your other ships. You're denying actions that would make those mines more effective, forcing your opponent to either not use them and try to save them for another turn, or to use them and be less effective with them. And I mean, either one of those I think is a win for whoever you if you are playing against the mines. As I get my pronouns correct here. But yeah, I
It's
mean,
also worth adding that there's a psychological aspect about just having that antimatter mine on your ship. Because if your opponent is paying attention, they saw the mines. They saw it's in your build. And that's one more thing that they need to be aware of, one more thing that they need to be cautious of and plan for. And that's one more opportunity for them to make a mistake. So if nothing else, it's putting pressure on your opponent that, oh, right, I got to remember that whole mine thing.
Oh yeah, and that's definitely very important. I can't count. Well, I can count, but there were enough games where I forgot which ship my opponent had their antimatter mines on.
Me too.
And that actually ended up hitting 5 cloaked science vessels at the same time.
You were flying 5 cloaked science vessels
at the same time.
Oh wow. Okay.
That was well, I want to say it was a learning experience, but I already knew better than that in the first place. I just wasn't paying attention.
Well, the learning experience, I guess, is to pay attention.
Oh yeah, but definitely pay attention to where those mines are. If it's only on one ship, or if it's buffed or boosted or whatever, try to take that ship out first. Those mines can be a great royal pain, especially if you're a cloaker. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
You said something when we were off the air, Will, when we were just talking about this, and that was when you're beginning that joust, if it's a joust, when you're beginning that, okay, we're closing the distance and you need to pick a target, that's one thing to take into account. You want to take out the ship that has the mines before it can pass you and have an opportunity to use those mines. So if you have a bunch of targets that are mostly equal, that one, having the mines might raise that on your your radar a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like in a standard jousting situation, you shoot at each other, then you go past each other. The ship with the mines is going to have still a great shot on you, while you might not have the best shots in return. So, I mean, planning for future damage mitigation is usually a pretty good way to run. But yeah, I mean, I think that covers it. We went through all the ships that can use it, all the attack combos that combo well with it. Take a booster, take a mobility card so that you can get into those good spots, good shooting spots. There we go. And just always be aware of where they are in the battlefield, because there's not much you can do to stop them, but there are some things you can do to mitigate them.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that about covers it. Want to go on to mobility effects?
Yeah, let's talk more about that.
All right. I will leave that in your capable hands.
Sounds good. So, as frequently gets discussed on the forums and elsewhere, every area's got a different meta. Every area's got different favorites and strategies that get used. Mobility cards are something that gives you a particular advantage that is really worth thinking about. Let's see. So we're not going to talk about everyone, but the list is rather long. Start with, yay, there it is. Start with something that you see a lot, because you see a lot of Klingon and Romulan builds. Cloaking. Cloaking itself is not a mobility, but sensor echo most certainly is. Sensor echo gives you a tremendous flexibility to try and kind of game the maneuver cycle, so that you can either get a shot for yourself, deny a shot for your opponent, or hey, even better, both. And that's what really all of these cards are. They are upping your advantage in that movement phase. Now, a lot of these are going to shine when you get to move later in the turn cycle. Getting some of these on a 9, 8, or 9 skill captain is really great because you get to see where everyone is. You get to see all of the movement that your opponents are now done with, and you get to decide how best to use these mobility cards.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a skill 9 captain, though, to really get some great use out of these. Let's talk about the extra movement ones there. Insha, a Klingon talent. It requires an action, and basically you get to do an additional maneuver on your dial. Any maneuver. You can do a red maneuver, a white maneuver, a green maneuver, it doesn't matter. So after your movement, you get to move again. And being able to do 4/4 is nothing to underestimate. Or being able to do a 4 and come about. Speaking of antimatter mines, that's a great way to set up an antimatter mine shot. Being able to scoot up right to the nose of your opponents and then flip around and set up that mine shot, very fun.
I've done that before. That was my opponent did not expect that at all.
Yeah, it's very unexpected. People don't see that coming. So that's Insha on the Klingons. Romulans have the Romulan pilot. Excellent card. It is a free action. Basically, and that is important to note, you need to be able to take an action. If you have an auxiliary token next to you, or you've been bumped, you can't use Romulan pilot. If you read the text, it almost sounds like maybe you should be able to, but it's been ruled you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it works that it says you get to take a free scan token, and you get to take another free green maneuver. You don't have to have taken a green maneuver prior. You can do anything you want, but then when you use Romulan pilot, you get an additional green maneuver, a bank, a straight, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to set up, go 4, and then most ships can do probably a 2 straight as a green, or a 1 bank or a 2 bank. The Enterprise D and Voyager can also take 3 forwards. So that is being able to take, well, in the case of those 2 ships, with the Enterprise D, you can go 5 and then 3. With the Voyager, you can go 6 and then 3. So that is a tremendous amount of movement with 1 card.
Oh yeah, that's almost half the board.
Yeah, no doubt. And then another one, I'm going to skip down to extra movement. I'm going to talk about Engage. Also, that's a Federation card. Requires an action. You have to have done a green maneuver. So it limits you in terms of what you can do first, and then it also limits what you can do after. Basically, you spend your action, and you can do an additional green maneuver, but you also get an auxiliary token. So it doesn't sound as quite as juicy as some of the others, but at the same time, you get to use it frequently. And actually, it reminds me, I forgot to mention, I think Insha is a discard.
Yes, it is. Single use.
So basically, Insha and Romulan pilot, you get to use it once.
Mm-hmm.
Gauge, you get to use every turn if you so want. And so that's why it's got some more limitations.
Mm-hmm.
However, playing Engage on the Enterprise D or the Voyager,
360
really
arcs.
gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of forward momentum or changes. Also using with Gul Dukat or Picard lets you not worry so much about that auxiliary token, because basically you can do whatever extra action you want, battle station, scan, whatever, it has to be on your action bar.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can do Engage. You get the extra movement, you get the auxiliary token, but you were able to do your additional action prior to that. And on the next turn, you're probably going to do another green maneuver anyway at the beginning of your activation phase, so the auxiliary token goes away. So it's not as bad as it reads sometimes.
Oh yeah. Having that auxiliary token going after you've done all your movement and all of your free actions you get, whether it be from Picard or something like the flagship action or things like that. I mean, that's it's not terrible to have a power token through the combat phase.
Yeah. Okay. So that's engage. I see that used quite a lot here in my area. I see Romulan Pilot used quite a bit. Inshaw, only occasionally. Um, there's only a couple of players that I see using Inshaw, but Romulan Pilot and Engage I see pretty frequently. Further down the list, we've got Jadzia Dax. Great card with a rather fatal flaw. Basically, you get to do an additional movement. It is an action. I think she is disabled when you use it.
Yep.
But you don't get to attack. On that turn, she basically negates your attack, and that's you know, that's a big. That's I mean, there are probably many a time that would be okay with you if you think of Jadzia Dax as a defensive card. If you basically want to get out of arc, get out of a tight spot, she's actually pretty great because, you know, fine, I'm not going to be able to get a shot, but I'm denying my opponent a shot.
I'm sorry. You mean if you want to run away?
Uh-oh, did I? Well,
That's
if you're
not
not
Klingon.
playing Klingons, then, you know, that's, you know, not a dirty word.
Gotcha.
So Jadzia Dax is conditional. I mean, there's some times I can imagine using it, but you know, press me. I've actually never played her, so I don't blame people for kind of shying away from her. If you have flagships available to you, the flagship Independent Dominion, we mentioned it earlier, basically gives your flagship the ability to grant an additional movement to one of your other ships. So you have to get the timing right of the captains, so that, you know, one captain moves that is on the flagship, and then your other ship moves so that it is within range 1 of your flagship. And if that works, that ship then can then slingshot past the flagship with an additional movement. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's any movement, green or white.
It is any green or white movement, but it happens after the flagships move. So
Okay.
the flagship moves, and then as an after you move effect, another ship in range 1 makes a maneuver.
Okay, so you do have to time it, but I had it reversed. So,
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so yeah.
But highly useful. Magnificent.
Yeah, absolutely. Skilled Helmsman, we're going to be seeing that coming. It's actually not out yet. We're going to see that with the Tholian, the Tholian web scenario. That's going to be everyone's going to be playing probably the next few weeks.
Good old participation prize.
Say again.
Good old participation prize.
Absolutely. And then I'm not going to go over all of them. The Cochrane deceleration maneuver it's pricey. It's one-time use. Kind of great. I've seen that put onto the Dominion battleship, which gives the Dominion battleship some much-needed maneuverability. So if you're looking for that, Cochrane deceleration maneuver, basically it requires that you do a 1 green maneuver as your movement, and then it takes an action, and when you use the action, it basically you just do a come about right where you are. You don't move any further. You just turn around, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah. And one thing I'll add to that is that it has to be a 1 straight maneuver. It doesn't necessarily have to be green, but
okay.
Because there was a ruling on something with energy dissipator that you could still use it. I remember that. That was a long time ago, though. What was I saying? One of the things one of my friends did at our local tournament scene was combine flagship and Romulan pilot and Cochrane deceleration maneuver. So what he did was you could use Romulan pilot to do your 1 forward maneuver, and then you could use your action to turn around. So he was able to do like 3 banks, 1 and Cochrane deceleration. So it's like a giant 4 bank K-turn.
Wow.
And that can get you the sheer amount of different positions you can get in with that is mind-boggling. But I mean, that was just something cool I saw with that.
Now I want to play that. Let's see. Let's talk about Uhura. I think personally, and a lot of people I play with, you know, kind of agree on this. That is a much underestimated card. People, it's like, why would you ever use her? I think it's a pretty amazing card. Basically, Uhura, you get to when you get to your movement phase, the activation phase, and it's time to reveal your dial, you can go, okay, I'm revealing my dial, but you know what? I'm doing something completely different. I am changing what I'm doing. We haven't seen anything like that until species 8472. There's one, I think the captain has
Oh
the
yes.
ability to say, you know what? I get to change my maneuver because I'm doing this special thing. But we've
Hmm.
had Uhura since Wave 0. You choose to do a 2 forward, and your opponent has flown in and set up an amazing shot that if you do that 2 forward, you're going to be just mincemeat. You say, you know what? Forget that 2 forward. I'm doing a 3 bank right, and I'm going to end up right to the side of my opponent. He gets no shot. Maybe you get no shot. That's fine, but you just avoided something rather formidable. Or maybe you were predicting that your opponent is going to be in spot A. Well, no, he did something completely different. He's in spot B. Fine. I'm going to change my maneuver dial, set up the shot I wanted, and there I am. So I
Hmm.
think Uhura is pretty great, and she's only 3, for Pete's sake. So nice card that I put on my builds a lot.
Oh yeah. Like I like the idea of her, but I always have a problem just finding the points to fit her in there. I feel like I would always rather have like Romulan pilot or something, but I mean, but she really does have some uses in the situation you described. It's like you're going into a rock paper scissors situation. Which maneuver do I do? Did I guess wrong? Uhura is the oh crap button.
See, I don't think of her as the oh crap button. I think of her as um, just a trick you have in your toolbox. It's
Hmm.
not the I screwed up and now I want to fix it. It's, it was a 50-50 decision whether my opponent did a 2 reverse
Hmm.
or a 3 bank, right?
Hmm.
And you can set up both those shots, but not at the same time. Uhura lets you set them up at the same time.
The lose-lose situation for the opponent.
Yeah, exactly,
I like
exactly.
it.
And the thing that drove me crazy when I first started using her is getting to the end of a game and I never used her. So that's the thing where I'm like, you know what? Now, anytime that she's on my build, pretty much I'll find a use for her.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, because that would always strike me as something like, man, I feel like I wasted something.
Yeah,
I hate
yeah.
waste.
I got to the end of many a battle with 2 cheat deaths on Kirk, and I didn't use either cheat death. And I was like, was that points well spent? I don't know.
Hey, they
But
worked as a deterrent, but
yeah, very true, very true. Let's just talk about 2 more. Let's talk about Sinan.
okay.
She's a little further down the list. Sinan was part of the OP prize for OP2. She
Yep.
was on the
Cha-ching.
Chitang.
Yep.
Yeah, she's on the Chitang. She is a Klingon card. I think her cost is 4.
5 point
Um,
crew.
5. Okay,
Yep.
so her cost is 5. Basically, she modifies sensor echo. She does, takes
Hmm.
no action. There's no qualifiers. It's just anytime you take a sensor echo, you get to choose. In addition to the 1 and the 2, you can also do a 3. So in the situation, oh, do you have a?
I do have a slight image for this that might come in handy. Here's a couple here.
Ah, okay,
So here's some examples of what she can do.
there you go. So yeah, so I mean, being able to sensor echo. First of all, I mean, everyone should probably know what a sensor echo is, but if you
Hmm.
don't, if you're flying a cloaked ship, it's one of your options that you can take from your action bar. It allows you to basically just place the 1 or 2 movement template next to your ship and move it over. And it doesn't have to line up perfectly on either spot. You get to decide the vertical movement, but you get to basically move a 1 or a 2. Sinan adds the ability to use the 3 template. So suddenly, that opens up a lot of movement options for a cloaking vessel.
Hmm.
Um, have you ever flown Sinan?
I have not. Like, I like the idea of her, but again, she's one of those cars that I haven't really found the points for. But
I don't fly cloaking ships all that often,
hmm.
and so when I do, I'm in the same situation. It's like I'm a little starved for points, and I end up not using her. But I ever since I got her, when I read the text, it was like, oh my god, that sounds so fun. I'm itching to try her sometime.
I will say that while I was doing some of these images just to figure out what you could do, this one actually caught my eye, and I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. This one is an example of where you want to sensor echo right, but you absolutely cannot because it's both the 1 and the 2 are blocked.
Yeah.
With Sinon, though, you can go all the way past it with the 3. So you still get what you wanted to do.
Very good point. Yeah.
So this one is the one that's, because I've run into situations in games before where like I want to sensor echo, but everything is too close in the direction I want to sensor echo into.
Yeah. You know, and just one more word on sensor echo. This was something that was ruled on in the FAQ by the designer, so it's worth mentioning that sensor echo is the only movement option you have in the game where you can actually measure before you take the action or commit to the action. So you can never measure your templates before you get to move, or when you're deciding your dial.
Mm-hmm.
But here is a case where you can say, I'm going to sensor echo, try to figure out, do you want to use the 1, do you want to use the 2? If you have Sinon, suddenly you can place that 3 next to it and say, well, which one do I want, the 2 or the 3? And then ultimately you can complete the action. Now, if, let's say you didn't have Sinon, and you're in the situation right here that Will has shown, you can't take a 1. You can't take a 2. Those are illegal moves. So what happens is your sensor echo action is null. You don't lose the action. You just basically go, oh, okay, I can't sensor echo. I guess I'll target lock instead.
Mm-hmm. Or something like that. But
yeah, just just picking one action off the bar.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's something that I need to try out with her sometime in the near future.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last one we're going to talk about is transwarp. There's certainly a lot more. I mean, actually, we might want to even just talk about quantum singularity. It's the new kid on the block. But transwarp drive came with the Excelsior expansion. It basically says anytime you choose a 4 forward on your dial,
or 5.
You can't. Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes.
Or a 5.
Either anytime you select a 4 or 5 straight forward, you can, when it comes time to actually do your movement, say, you know what, I'm going to do a 6 instead. You can't measure. You can't go take the 4 and go, you know what, I don't like that, let's try the 6. You have to basically decide before you even touch the movement templates, but you can convert a 4 into a 6. And that has huge advantages, especially if you're flying with rear arcs. Frequently, I'll fly the Excelsior, and I have quantums or photons that I'm trying to use very frequently, and being able to control when my opponent is outside of range 1 behind me is a huge advantage. And so if I select the 4, depending on how he moved, maybe the 4 is exactly what I want, but maybe he moved a little further up than I expected. I can then 6, he's out of range 1, and I can fire on him.
Oh yeah. And that's another one of those things that you'll learn with experience. Being able to measure 4 by eye is something I've managed to do, and I've been able to use to wonderful effect. Be like, well, it looks like the 4 is going to bump, but if the 4 is going to bump, you are absolutely going to get by with the 6. If you do something shorter, like something if it was just a 5, there's still the probability that you would bump, but the 6 definitely gets you past that danger zone.
So I'll ask a leading question here. Is there any ship that you can imagine using transwarp drive on that would be an advantage?
I can think of quite a few. One of my personal favorites recently is actually the Borg Sphere. And like people say that the Borg Sphere has great maneuvers already because it can go forward, back, left, right, any direction you want. But being able to go 4 forward, see that it's probably going to bump or be like right in that range, and then 6 to go right behind them. I mean, that's taking advantage of the great arcs that particular ship has, and getting behind into rear arcs that most other ships, either don't have or can't use effectively at that range. Of course.
When you described that to me earlier, I think it actually sent a little shiver, down my neck. It's like, oh God, I'm gonna have to play against that, aren't I?
But yeah, that's one of the best, little cheap add-ons I can think of to add for just the Borg. But I think there's going to be enough other things that you have to deal with them in particular that this was just another option and one that I kind of liked.
Well, let's end the talk on mobility with just mentioning quantum singularity. That just came out in Wave 4. It came with the Bioship Alpha, the Species 8472 ship. It's a wacky card. I think it's either going to be amazing or not. I think time will tell. That one I don't remember very well off the top of my head, except that it basically allows you to spend your action. I think it happens at the end of the activation phase.
Yes.
You lift your ship up off the map,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get to place it anywhere on the map, but it has to be outside of range 3 from any ship.
That is correct. And that happens at the end of the battle phase. So all the shooting goes off and then it comes back.
There we go. So at the end of the, so you lift it up at the end of your on your action,
Mm-hmm.
and then you place it back down at the end of that.
At the end of the turn. Yep.
Yeah. So all kinds of shenanigans. Oh, is that the card that? No. I'm sorry. I'm mixing it up with regenerate. That you lose your attack. So I mean, in effect, you are losing your attack because you're basically disappearing during the combat phase and reappearing after the combat phase. So you do lose your attack. A lot of people are thinking that you could just teleport right behind somebody and then fire, but no, they're going to be able to move again before you get to fire because you'll be firing on the next turn.
And you are still outside of range 3 there.
Yeah. Good point. So mobility
cool.
cards, tons of options. Don't underestimate them. They really can enhance your ability to set up shots, avoid shots. We talked about antimatter mines. These things are fantastic to help you set up an antimatter mine drop. They're great for just about all kinds of situations. So there's mobility cards. Anything you'd like to add, Will?
Yeah, I got like just one or two things. Just we talked about different offensive and defensive uses for them. One of the things that I know we were talking about earlier, you said wasn't very present in your meta, but it is in mine, is action denial. Things like sensor echo are invaluable for action denial. So like with this particular location here, this ship has basically 1, 2, 3, 4 different maneuvers that if it tried to do them would bump and most likely give me a shot as well. But I mean that would cause the little Romulan ship here to be stuck right up against me, no actions, and I think that's really one of the best ways to use extra movement cards offensively is to get in range 1 without your opponent getting any actions. So no Scotty, no Sulu, no sensor echo to get away, things like that. Apart from that, I mean, there was only one other thing that I was going to go over, and that's some fancy shenanigans, sensor echoing back to almost the place you started.
Oh yeah.
You can do like nice little figure 8s in the middle of the board if you don't want to move in a particular direction. With Sinon, you've got, let's see, where did I put that one? Well, I mean, these are just all kinds of other things. This is engage plus sensor echo, getting around behind an enemy, and that's from long range. But let's see, I lost Sinon. I think it's somewhere in the Tholian web one. But I mean, you can sensor echo back, and like try to keep your position really well with things like sensor echo. But yeah, I mean, positioning is a very important part of this game. It is the most important part of this game, some people would argue. Yeah, that's all I've got. Anything else for you?
No, I think we covered a whole ton of ground there.
All right, then I believe it is time to move on to the Tholian web. All right, so this was a graphic that I actually pulled off of Board Game Geek. Someone on there, Ghost Runner, I believe the name was kind enough to do a quick icon, artistic mock-up. I did a video of it earlier on my channel, but all this scary numbers and lines and stuff. This is the basic setup of the Tholian web. So for those who don't know yet, the Tholian web scenario begins with energy web tokens, here where we see the number 1, both on the top and the bottom of the board. With this, every turn, you're going to add 2 more energy web tokens to each side. So you've got basically these 2 and these 2. At the end of round 1, they will be placed. So going into round 2, you'll have, both your starting areas are pretty much blocked off. As the board continues to shrink, these energy web tokens are considered the edge of the gaming universe. If you touch them with either your template or your base, then you are instantly destroyed. You are gone forever. It's basically the same as if you were flying off the board. The arena keeps getting smaller. After round 2, you start losing the edges until it spirals all the way in at round 7, where you're left with a 12-inch by 12-inch space. That is 1 range ruler in length and width that you have to try to maneuver in. So, I mean, you've got, generally for me, and I think for a lot of tournament matches, most matches I see will not go past 8 or 9 rounds until they hit time. With this, it changes that a little bit because you're forced into the center. There's no other obstacles besides the energy tokens. And I think it's going to play, just all that little bit differently. What are your initial impressions of this scenario, Dan?
Initial impressions. I like that it's changing things up. I like that it's trying to make us think and do different things with our build. I'm a little concerned that it's basically encouraging a joust. I think I was hoping for something a little more. The scenarios I have found the most fun is when there are obstacles that you need to consider and that you can use to your advantage. This is basically just going to be ships flying at each other and trying to maneuver tightly as that thing gets a little narrower. I think it's going to boil down to you're either going to make a build that is trying to do its thing in the first couple rounds, or you're going to make a build that can survive till round 8. Being able to do extremely tight turns in that 12 by 12 inch center square. So I think that'll probably depend on your area, and I'm sure there's probably another option that somebody's going to come up with that it doesn't fall into one of those categories, and I can't wait to see it.
That'll be a little crazy, but I mean, yeah, there's basically 2 strategies to go about this map. You either go for the strong alpha strike, kill them before the web finishes early on round 3, 4, 5, or be prepared for the tight quarters combat round 7, 8, 9, 10, and beyond. I mean, for this, I think the best thing to focus on is going to be the tight quarters combat, since alpha strike builds haven't really changed much, I don't think, in the past couple OPs, and I think that's pretty common strategy by now. Build up the most attack dice you can with the best attack enhancers. Klingons with Drex Nagarin, or battleships, or quantum torpedoes, things like that. But I mean, for this one, I think we should be focusing more on what can survive in the close combat area. So, I mean, just to start off with that, I think we should let's look at some ships that are going to be good for this. All right, the first thing I have on my list is, 180-degree arcs. So any ship with a 180-degree arc, here we have just, am I on the correct one? Yes. Here we have a ship that can have a 180-degree arc and cover pretty much half the battlefield or all the battlefield with its weapons. And I think that's going to be very important when you're in close. The 180 or better arcs are going to do a lot of damage since you can use them every turn. So Miranda class, Constitution class, 360 arcs from Voyager or Enterprise D, the 360 arc from the Borg. I hate to say it, but maybe even the 180 arc from the Kazon Nistrum Raider. Not that I think it'll do a lot of damage, but I think it will get a lot of chances to shoot if it, survives.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in addition to those, the backup maneuver, kind of demonstrated here that a lot of the Federation and a couple of the other races have, but mostly Federation, I think I see it in as either the 1 or 2 backup maneuver that'll help you, keep your position in a small board. Because, when your quarters are this close, making huge sweeping maneuvers, which you have to take with like the battleship or the Keldon, are more than likely going to, just throw you right off the board. Let's see. Failing that, I mean, without the backup maneuver, there are some ships that have, the very close come about maneuvers, the 1 or 2 maneuvers that you get with like the fighters or the science vessels. I think those will be pretty good as well. The 3s that come with like the Klingons, not so much, I want to say, because they are going to have, some problems. Like here you have the turns. Let me see if I can find. Like with the 3 come about, you're still ending up, pretty close to the edges, and you're not getting the best firing arc solutions. Like this is less than a third of the board right here. And then you still have to do a 1 forward or a 1 bank to clear the power token, and then try to do it again. And you're already looking pretty close to the edge of the board. But I mean, yeah, what kind of suggestions would you have for ships in this scenario?
Well, to your example right there, we didn't talk about it in the previous segment, but Pavel Chekhov would be a good thing to show up in the scenario you're just showing there, because I'm flying Klingon, I do a 3 come about, I've got the auxiliary token. Normally you would be limited to a green maneuver to get rid of that auxiliary token. Pavel Chekhov adds white maneuvers to that possibility. So, I mean, your point is still very good that, a 3 come about really is kind of getting you close to the edge there. But adding Pavel Chekhov basically gives you a lot more options to get rid of that auxiliary token and set up your next move or what have you.
Oh yeah, and that can also apply to, like, this is for the ships that don't have, white turns, the ones with the red turns. Every turn you get a power token, then you got to keep turning. I think he could work with those ships as well, which would be pretty nice. But yeah, I mean, beyond all that, like, I feel like the dominating ship in this scenario is going to be the Sphere. The Sphere in close quarters combat, it can do, it can ride the edge of the board with its, 1s and 2s, 1s and 2s. It's turning at 90 degrees every time, so it's never worried about, if I take this bank, am I going to clip the corner on the edge there? I just don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a very geometric board for a very geometric ship.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned that at 2 of the venues here in my area, they are going to bar Wave 4 from the Tholian web. The idea there is not to say, hey, it's nothing about Borg. It was that the Tholian web got delayed, and so it was actually never intended to be played with Wave 4. So I think it's an interesting point. But yeah, we're not going to see any Borg in our Tholian web, at least in a couple places here.
Gotcha. That would have been that might have been nice around here too. I already see too many people around here playing with their Borg ships.
Yeah. But I think but what you're illustrating here is not having to worry about banks and stuff like that. It's changes the things you need to think about.
Especially when your 360 arc is pretty much able to hit the entire board no matter where you are. Like, even cross the corners.
Thought exercise then. How do you get a Borg sphere to survive 8 rounds?
Stay away.
Yeah.
3 copies of a blade of hull armor. It's a possibility, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that the ships can do. But yeah, I think the Borg, the 180 arcs, the backup maneuver, and the short-range fighters are all going to be great in this scenario. But moving on next, what kind of upgrades are going to be good to put on these ships. And one we already mentioned was Chekhov, because he allows you to, pull these power token shenanigans with, whatever you've got. It won't help so much the ones that have red turns, but for the three come abouts, he would be a good deal. What do you think about weapons? Let me give this as a leading question. What do you think is the best kind of weapon that you're going to see in this scenario?
Dorsal weapons array.
Dorsal weapons array is pretty nice. I am also going to think that we're going to see something we talked about earlier, mines. All kinds of mines.
Yeah.
Now, cloaked mines has actually been banned at my venues because of after some research, we decided, number one, they were really a little strong for their cost, and number two, I played them all the time and people didn't have fun.
Fair enough.
So
well, so they're banned. We can blame you that they're banned.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was kind of my urging that they ban them because I knew that I would be able to do crazy, ridiculous things with them. And then they saw the light and they're like, yeah, this is no fun to play against.
They are not banned here. They are quite legal, and I am expecting to see them in Tholian Web for sure.
Quite legal and quite lethal.
Yes.
Because if you can see by my little diagram here, one cloaked mine smack dab in the middle of the field, that's range 1 to pretty much every corner of the board.
Yeah.
You are not escaping that. Like even with where I have the ship set up, it's going to be very hard to stay that close to the edge without, just burning your fingers a little bit. And if you just touch that web token, boom, you're gone. But yeah, I mean, even with cloaked mines, you can see me using my little fake template here. Even if you don't get it right in the center, I mean, that's still a large, what is that, 2/3,
Yeah.
3/4 of the area that it's covering. And that's gonna be brutal. I can see a lot of people bringing cloaked mines to this event.
So I hate to say this while we're recording, but I have a hard stop in about 10 minutes.
Gotcha, not a problem. All right, so we will speed it up just a little. I mean, we've got even the antimatter mines, nuclear warheads, ships that need to turn around are going to have to fit around these corners at some point. These two minefields will be hit by pretty much everything. So, I mean, your placement is going to be key and all that good stuff. We were talking earlier about 360-degree arcs, the area control from these mines. What other upgrades would be good? Anything short range. So things that I want to say are going to be good are going to be Barrage of Fire, for people that didn't already think it was overpowered to begin with. I never had a problem with it, but things like that. Energy Dissipator. There will be a lot of range 1 shots, I believe, at this in this event. Projected Stasis Field. You have to be in range 1 to 2. I think that's going to hurt a lot. Anything you can think of off the top of your head?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about the cloaking mines. I think that's something that we're going to need to think about here. I think we're going to see, I mean, to go along with projected stasis field, I think we might be seeing a lot more of the, I hate the word ganker, but it's the word that everyone uses, the crew ganker cards, stuff that allows you to steal or disable crew and tech from your opponent. If we're going to see a lot of the, I think the Borg are, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a lot of cards that have come out in just Wave 4 that I think change things around because suddenly people are choosing to drop their shields and they're not cloaked.
Good old ablative generator.
Yep. I think it's only one version of them though. I think one tells you to drop your shields and the other doesn't.
Yeah, the Borg one doesn't, but the Voyager one does.
Okay, there we go.
But yeah, and you're saying crew ganking cards earlier. The Gem Hadar that usually don't get played, I could see them getting some use here.
Yeah.
Because since even though they're only range 1, they ignore shields.
Yeah.
Superior Intellect might be a good one to bring by just to break any combo builds.
There's a new Kazon card.
The boarding party?
Allows you to steal something very similar to Superior Intellect. You get to steal it and use it. I can't remember what it is.
The Kazon boarding party, I think it is, right? If you can make them steal a tech. And I think that'll be useful along with like 7 of 9, who also copies a tech and things like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, everything that works in close quarters is going to be stronger here. You know, anything that has a limit of range 1 or range 1 to 2, crew ganking effects, things like that. Things to just keep hurting your opponent. You know, over actions and over attacks. But I mean, yeah, short range things, area control effects, things to avoid. I'm actually going to say that sensor echo is a thing to avoid in this scenario, because you know, if you're taking the sensor echo, I don't know if I have a picture of it, but you know, if you're taking the sensor echo, you're pretty much sensor echoing into the center of the board, and when you do that, you have to turn or go forward or somewhere. No matter which way you're going very dangerously close, facing the web, and that is not a good position to be in. Like from the center here, I could go, you know, up or down or over to the side, but all of them lend me to not good maneuvers in the near future. Let's see. Red turns are pretty bad. We were looking at those earlier with the you have to turn and then you have to bank and then you have to turn. And if you don't have the really good firing arcs, like if you don't have the 180 arcs at least, you're facing, you know, pretty much terrible directions all the way around the board. Anything else you think won't be very useful?
Won't be very useful.
Yep. Things to avoid. Think that about covers it then, maybe?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, by the time you get, I mean, if the game goes to this point, there's a lot of things that suddenly change rather drastically. I mean, you will probably not be able to use torpedoes very effectively unless you're using plasma torpedoes.
Indeed.
So I guess that's fair mentioning. Photons and quantums, when you get to this point, it's going to be hard to get people out of range 1. Plasma torpedoes suddenly are shining because they're happy in range 1.
Oh yeah.
Minion torpedoes work in range 1, so
they might finally see some use.
Then again, I mean, if you're flying a minion ship and you're at this point, you're dead.
Yeah, kind of. One more thing that I just thought of while we were talking. Power token granters. The Ferengi EM Pulse that came with the Kraton OP1, or the Positron Beam.
Yes.
For ships that need to take red maneuvers to stay in the web, throwing an extra power token on them is like instant death. It's like fire and forget. They will eventually fly off the board because they have no choice.
Yeah, yeah. Good point.
And that'll be pretty terrible for them. But
there's a new weapon, if I recall. I don't. It's all the way 4 stuff. I haven't got cemented in my head. It's a new weapon that puts a stress token on you.
The Kazon, the photonic charges.
There we go.
That's a pretty good one. If it hits, you give the opponent a power token, and it doesn't require a target lock. So it is one of the decent weapons.
All of the players out there, I said stress token. I'm not even an X-Wing player. I played enough with X-Wing players that they've stuck that in my head. I've never played X-Wing, and here I'm calling it a stress token.
I wasn't paying attention. Did I say that too?
I don't think you did. No, I said.
Woo!
Yeah, it was me. It was me.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I mean, for all the things to think about in the scenario, you know. So we were going over 180-degree or better arcs, backup maneuvers, very short come-abouts, things that work at short range, things that improve your firing arc, things that control the area, because smaller area to control means all the mines are more effective, and anything that grants auxiliary power. These are going to be the things that I think are going to shine in this event.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything before we finish off this one?
No. I think that covers a lot of it. I think one thing is I'm thinking a lot about fighters. And
yes.
I think this is certainly a scenario where fighters can really shine. The trick is getting them to survive till turn 7 or 8. But definitely fighters would have no trouble flying around in this.
Especially the Federation fighters with their 1 and 2 come-abouts that are white.
Yeah.
You know, no stress there, nothing.
One of the Romulan, I think the Romulan Scout has a 1 and 2 white come-about.
Yep, the Scout and the Science Vessel.
There we go.
And the Bajoran one. The Bajoran one that I almost forgot about.
The Bajoran has a red come-about.
Does it?
But it has a white 1 turn.
Gotcha. And that'll be pretty valuable.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be it for the Tholian web.
Okay.
Normally we'd have a little bit of a Q&A session here. We are running a little long though, so I'll just throw out some extra news. Wave 4, of course, is out now. You know, check that out, pick them up, look at your new Borg and Voyager cards. Teri, that Teri girl on YouTube, has just put up a Tholian web prize unboxing. So there's spoilers for the Tholian ship and all the Tholian energy web tokens that come with that ship as well. And
check that out.
oh yeah, and next episode is going to be this coming Tuesday. Right now it's Sunday, but it'll be again Tuesday at 8:30. I'll be hosting with Mike. We'll be talking about cloaked mines. We'll be talking about what was the other one? It was something important. Oh, 1 ship, 2 ship, 3 ship, blue ship, swarm ship. We're talking about how the number of ships in your build affects the different tactics you're going to be using. But yeah, Dan, if you'd like to say one more time, where people can find you at.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Board Game Geek. I think I'm Cassiel33.
Yep.
I'm actually post occasionally, so you'll probably see me here and there. I'm playing out in the San Francisco Bay Area. A lot of venues here. We have about 4 or 5 stores running the OPs, so I feel very lucky for that.
Very nice.
And yeah, it's been a great ride.
Cool. Very nice. Yep, so this is State of the Federation. If you think you are a Zach Dorn master strategist like us, maybe you have a bit of a DS9 to prove your loyalty to the Federation or the founders, feel free to drop me a line. You can find me on YouTube or on Board Game Geek as Delta Angel Fire. I'm always looking for additional co-hosts, different points of view to help bring on the show and, different tactics to discuss. And that's pretty much all I have. Any final words, Dan?
No, go Star Trek.
Go Star Trek. All right. This has been State of the Federation. If you're watching this on the archives, I'll link to all the cool stuff down below, including Dan's Board Game Geek profile and some of the videos that will probably help you, including the Tholian web demonstration. With that said, play more Attack Wing, and may Q be generous with your dice.
Well,
Have a good night, everybody.